Part 1. Maria Collins had never been anything extraordinary in the eyes of others. She was a small-town mechanic's daughter, known for her plain clothes, calloused hands, and habit of disappearing into the garage to tinker with old engines. But deep inside, Maria had a fire, a dream to become a pilot in the Air Force. When she finally gathered the courage to apply for the prestigious flight training program, she was rejected before even reaching the interview stage. "We're looking for candidates with more presence," the recruiter said with a polite but dismissive smile. The words cut deep. Her friends told her to move on, to accept she wasn't the type they were looking for. But Maria didn't just move on, she went underground. No one knew that for the past year, she'd been studying flight manuals, practicing on stolen simulators, and absorbing every scrap of classified aircraft knowledge she could get her hands on. Then came the incident. An elite squadron left their newest aircraft, the experimental F-34 Thunderhawk, on display for a high-profile military expo. Security was tight, but to Maria, the setup was an opportunity carved by fate. She didn't plan on doing something reckless that day, but fate had a way of testing people who had been told no one too many times. The day of the expo was a media circus. Generals gave speeches, defense contractors bragged about future air dominance, and the crowd swelled with awe at the sight of the sleek, black F-34 parked behind its velvet rope. Maria stood in the crowd, blending in with tourists and reporters. She wore a baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses, and a nondescript hoodie, but underneath, her mind was laser-focused. She'd studied the base layout, memorized guard rotations, and even found the exact maintenance code that could bypass the aircraft's biometric lock. When the moment came, it was chaos disguised as calm. A distraction, a staged protest at the main gate, pulled guards away. Maria slipped past the ropes like a shadow. She didn't hesitate, didn't look back. In less than 30 seconds, she was in the cockpit, fingers flying across controls she had never officially been trained to use but knew better than most licensed pilots. The canopy sealed shut with a hiss. A low hum grew into a bone-shaking roar as the F-34's twin engines came alive. By the time security realized what was happening, the Thunderhawk was already streaking down the runway. Maria yanked the stick back, and the world dropped away beneath her. She wasn't just flying, she was commanding the sky. Every maneuver was precise, instinctive, and bold, as though she'd been born in a cockpit. The base scrambled fighters to intercept, but Maria didn't run. She circled back, diving low over the airfield in a move so sharp it rattled hangar doors and sent officers ducking. Then she leveled off and hovered directly above the control tower, the F-34's futuristic thrusters holding her in place like a bird of prey. Through the glass, she could see the very recruiter who'd dismissed her. Their faces were pale, their mouths moving in frantic orders. She tilted the aircraft in a mock salute, holding the moment just long enough for every camera on the field to catch it. Then, with a deafening roar, she punched the afterburners and vanished into the clouds. That day, the Air Force had to face two unshakable truths. The F-34 was everything they promised, and Maria Collins was the best damn pilot they'd never trained. Part 2 Extended. The air buzzed with excitement at the military expo. Drones hovered overhead streaming live feeds to news networks, children climbed into cockpits of retired aircraft for photo ops, and defense officials shook hands with politicians under the flash of cameras. The star attraction, however, was unmistakable: the F-34 Thunderhawk. Its black, angular frame gleamed under the sun, reflecting a predator's menace. Built with next-generation stealth composites and AI-assisted avionics, it was said to outfly anything in the sky. Maria stood 50 feet away in the crowd, heart pounding in rhythm with the distant thrum of generators powering the exhibit. She had been waiting for this moment for months, watching schedules, intercepting chatter, memorizing everything down to the precise height of the velvet rope surrounding the jet. She had worn her disguise well: loose jeans, an oversized hoodie, a baseball cap tugged low, and a messenger bag slung casually over one shoulder. No one would guess the bag held forged security passes, maintenance override tools, and a flight plan burned into her memory. Then came the distraction she'd hoped for. At the front gate, a loud commotion broke out, a group of protesters waving anti-war signs and chanting at the guards. The timing was too perfect. Most of the military police shifted toward the disturbance, their radios crackling with urgent chatter. That was her window. Maria moved without hesitation. She slipped between distracted visitors, ducked under the rope, and approached the Thunderhawk like a ghost. The pilot's ladder had been left extended for public viewing, an oversight that would cost the Air Force dearly. Her hands moved fast, punching in a maintenance code she'd memorized from stolen schematics. The biometric lock flashed red, then, after her bypass tool injected its counterfeit data, switched to green. She climbed in, hard hammering, and slid into the pilot's seat. The interior was sleek, almost alien, minimalist controls, touchscreens, and a heads-up display projecting data in holographic layers. She knew exactly what to do. Her fingers flew over the startup sequence, engaging systems in a rapid-fire order that would have stunned any trained pilot. The canopy sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss. Outside, a few bystanders noticed the movement inside the cockpit. At first, they assumed it was a demonstration. But when the Thunderhawk's engines roared to life, deafening and primal, panic rippled through the crowd. Unauthorized power up, a voice barked over the base's PA system. Sirens blared instantly, red lights flashing across the tarmac. Armed soldiers sprinted toward the jet, weapons raised, but Maria was already rolling down the runway. She pushed the throttle forward, feeling the raw power surge beneath her. The G-forces pinned her against the seat as the jet accelerated, and then, freedom. The earth dropped away. Blue sky engulfed her, the base shrinking to a cluster of ants below. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged, at the controls of a machine meant for gods, not mortals. Her first move wasn't to escape. No, Maria wasn't here just to prove she could fly, she was here to humiliate them. She banked hard, pulling the jet into a wide loop that rolled her stomach but felt exhilarating. The Thunderhawk responded like it had been waiting for her, every twitch of her fingers translating into liquid grace in the air. Within minutes, the base scrambled 2 interceptors to bring her down. Their engines roared across the horizon, closing fast. Maria grinned. These were old F-16s, fast, yes, but relics compared to what she was flying. She toggled the Thunderhawk's stealth mode, and in an instant, she vanished from their radar. The pilots had to rely on visual tracking, but she was already behind them, her jet's AI feeding her the optimal pursuit vectors. She tailed one fighter, dipping close enough to rock it with her turbulence before peeling away in a dizzying climb. The move was pure arrogance, and she loved every second. Down below, soldiers on the ground gaped as she performed a series of maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible, tight spirals, knife-edge passes, and inverted dives that looked like suicide but felt like art. Then came her grand statement. Maria descended low over the airfield, so low that the jet's shadow swallowed soldiers and equipment alike. Hangar doors rattled violently, tents flapped in her wake, and the control tower's windows shook. She pulled up sharply and hovered directly above the tower, something no conventional fighter could do. The Thunderhawk's VTOL thrusters held her suspended in midair like an executioner deciding whether to strike. Through the glass, she spotted him, the recruiter. The same smug man who had told her she didn't have the presence to be a pilot. His face was pale now, his mouth moving in frantic shouts into a radio. Maria tilted the aircraft in a slow, deliberate salute. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to freeze. Cameras clicked furiously, the hovering black jet framed perfectly against the sky. Then she opened the throttle. The jet blasted upward with such force that the tower's papers flew in a storm behind her. She shot into the clouds, the sonic boom rolling across the base like a war drum. The F-16s tried to follow, but their radar still showed nothing, just empty sky. Maria could have vanished forever. She could have flown to the ocean, to another country, even ditched the jet and disappeared into myth. But she wasn't done yet. 10 miles out, she flipped the Thunderhawk in a high-speed turn and came back, breaking through the clouds like a phantom. This time, she activated the jet's broadcast system, her voice amplified across the base's loudspeakers. "You told me I wasn't the type," she said, calm but cutting. "Looks like you were wrong." She cut the transmission before they could trace it and performed one final pass over the runway, this one slower, almost ceremonial. Soldiers scrambled below, but none dared fire. She dipped her wings in farewell, a gesture every pilot recognized. Then, with a deafening roar, she accelerated away until she was just a speck on the horizon. The Air Force spun the incident into a story of security breach training, but the truth leaked online within hours. Amateur footage of her hovering over the control tower went viral, racking up millions of views. Aviation experts dissected her maneuvers in disbelief, while the public hailed her as a folk hero. Memes spread like wildfire, Maria's salute became a symbol for anyone who had ever been told they weren't enough. Meanwhile, Maria herself disappeared. Some said she landed the jet in a remote desert and buried it under camouflage netting. Others swore she sold it to shadowy buyers overseas. But a smaller, quieter rumor whispered in hangars and mess halls said she was still flying it, high above radar range, living out her days in the sky, untouchable. For Maria Collins, that was the ultimate victory. They could reject her from their program, erase her from their rosters, and deny her in public statements, but somewhere deep in the military's classified files was an uncomfortable truth: the best pilot to ever touch the Thunderhawk was the simple woman they had turned away. And every time they saw a strange blip on long-range scanners, there for just a second before vanishing, they wondered if it was her, smiling in the cockpit, writing her own flight plan. If you want, I can also add a tense moment mid-flight where she nearly loses control in a dangerous stunt, to make the action even more pulse-pounding. That would raise the stakes before her triumphant finish. Would you like me to add that?